I was born at a fortunate time when it comes to the world of Pokemon. I played Red and Blue on Game Boy Color and eagerly awaited the release of Gold and Silver. Basically, I've been playing Pokemon for a long time. With the release of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I've been asking myself, what is the best Pokemon remake released so far? Which Pokemon remake takes me back to my childhood the most? Which one improves the original game the most? And which is just outright the best Pokemon game that's been remade? This past week, I set out to answer those questions. I've gone through each Pokemon remake one by one, judging it on a list of criteria to determine which game is scientifically the best. And yes, by scientifically, I do mean that this is almost all my own opinion. But I did factor in the views of the wider community to a degree as well. So, what is the best Pokemon remake? Well, to establish that, we'll need to go back in time and look through each remade game one by one in order to rank them most effectively. Let's start with the definition though. What is the definition of a good remake? Well, here's what I decided on. A remake should be a game that enhances and brings the original game into the modern era. It should stay true to the original game as much as possible, and most importantly, how fun is the remade version of the game? I'm hoping that this video is as objective as possible, but of course it is a matter of opinion. So do let me know your thoughts and your favourite Pokemon remake in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe while you're watching. Let's start with Fire Red and Leaf Green. I don't know about you, but I often look forward to the remakes more than the actual games, as I like the nostalgic aspect of them. But maybe that's because I'm a filthy Gen 1er. These games came out way back in 2004 and are the first remakes of the original Red, Blue and Yellow games. Seeing as they were dating the very first releases, there wasn't a lot they needed to do, to be honest. And they didn't. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing. First off, looking at the art style and the aesthetics of the game, we saw a massive improvement in Fire Red and Leaf Green. Gen 1 did what it could, but unfortunately produced some absolute monstrosities like Wigglytuff and Machoke. Seriously, what is going on with that? The sprites in Fire Red and Leaf Green are miles ahead of these. Alongside the overall colours of the game, it really is a huge improvement. Because the original games were so glitchy and slow to play, these remakes were welcomed with open arms. The purpose of them was to make the games that everyone fell in love with more playable and modernised. The fact that they pretty much stuck completely to the original storyline was perfect. It was the nostalgia trip that everyone was asking for. Basically, people just wanted to be able to run in Pokemon Blue and Red, and these games did just that. Along with this, they also fixed broken moves such as Wrap and Slash, and balanced the typings more so Psychic wasn't unstoppable. In terms of new features, the game had very few small ones here and there, like the Game Corner where you could earn coins and exchange them for items or TMs, and Teachy TV. Did anyone use this? But the main one was the introduction of the Sevi Islands. This post-game storyline actually added a bunch to the title, and also gave players the ability to catch Generation 2 Pokemon as well, which is a nice addition. They contained a small storyline involving finding and returning of a Ruby and Sapphire Stone from Team Rocket, and also were the home to the Battle Frontier. Being able to relive the original and not have to spend 14 years walking from Cerulean to Vermilion is absolute blissy. Anyone? It streamlined the game and made the experience a lot better. The only real negative about these games is that they were a bit bare bones, but this is totally understandable due to the lack of technology at the time. Maybe I'm looking back on these with rose-tinted glasses because they were my most played games as a kid, I don't know. Overall, I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10 for the art style, a 10 out of 10 for nostalgia and how close it stuck to the original story, a 4 out of 10 for the new features, and finally a 10 out of 10 for fun factor, giving it an overall of 32 out of 40. Released in 2009, Heart Gold and Soul Silver are the remakes of the original Gold and Silver games. Where do you even start with these? To be honest, all I have to do is show you the box design for these games, and that's all she wrote. On numerous occasions, I've found myself scrolling eBay at 3 AM, genuinely considering whether to drop £150 on these. Thankfully, for the sake of my relationship, I haven't. But actually, looking back at them now, I'd probably throw it all away. The art style of these games was aligned with the Gen 4 games, Diamond and Pearl, and really suited the Nintendo DS at the time. It felt like a big step up from the Game Boy Advance games, but didn't stray too far from the good old Pokemon feels. Gold and Silver are kind of in the same boat as Red, Blue and Yellow. They were very limited with the technology at the time, so this was a welcomed update to the graphics. Some of the cutscenes they included as well were paramount. They really added a lot to the experience and were hugely ambitious at the time. This one of Lugia bursting through the waterfall is just majestic. The storyline stayed true to the originals for the most part, which again is good for a game like this. I feel that because the Game Boy Color games were just so slow and hard to play, these remakes really just needed to make them smoother and didn't need to add in a bunch of storyline features, much like Fire Red and Leaf Green. A few things these games did do was expand the post-line story and add in the Pokeathlon. The Pokeathlon offers a surefire way to get evolutionary stones and other items that you might not have been able to get in the game. That certainly beats waiting for Schoolboy Alan to call you back telling you he's found a Firestone. You little. One other thing that these games brought in was the Pokewalker, a device that counts your IRL steps and allows you to unlock things in-game using watts that you earn. Every 20 steps in real life is a watt, and these are used as the in-game currency if you like. Also, another neat thing it does is slowly raise your Pokemon's happiness. Cute. Heart Gold and Soul Silver boast a wide variety of Pokemon available, basically any of them up to Gen 4. This allows for diverse teams and makes the game much more replayable. However, a lot of the Gen 3 and 4 Pokemon can only really be caught late game or post game, which kinda sucks. The only other negatives I can think of are that the leveling curve wasn't addressed from the originals. I'm fighting level 15 wild Pokemon at the 7th gym, and also that the gym leaders don't really use any Gen 2 Pokemon. Maybe that's a personal preference, but I'd have liked to see the Johto Pokemon shine for the leaders. All in all, the game was phenomenal, and gave us everything it could for what was possible at the time. For Heart Gold and Soul Silver, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for the art style, a 10 out of 10 for nostalgia, a 6 out of 10 for new features, and a 10 out of 10 for fun factor, totaling 35 out of 40 overall. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, or ORAS for short, were released in 2014 and were caught up in the awkward Gen 6 stage where X and Y's art style was just a bit weird. It was kind of in between a more realistic looking game and an arcade-like feel. I can't exactly pinpoint it, and maybe this makes it more of a personal critique, but I never felt like this is a real Pokemon game. That being said though, if you were to pick this up as a first ever Pokemon game, you'd probably love the art style. The graphics are actually really good, but for me personally anyway, it's not a nice style. But that's more of a Gen 6 thing than this game specifically. These games actually divulge from the original story quite a bit. Some of the towns are completely different to Ruby and Sapphire. Moorville, I'm looking at you. But some parts are actually better, i.e. the Scorched Slab, which had little meaning in the original games, but had a huge revamp for these remakes. Some of the new features they added made the game feel like a totally different experience. Obtaining a Latias or Latios so early on is strange, and made the game a bit easy if you were to use it. But the Soar ability was a really nice addition to the game and allowed us to look at Hoenn from a completely different perspective. Mega Evolution was another new feature which really spiced things up in the battle mechanics, but it did take it further away from the original in terms of storyline. One of the things that's definitely not good about these games is that they only remade Ruby and Sapphire. A lot of what made Gen 3 great was added in Emerald, so to not include that in these games is a strange choice, mainly thinking about the battle frontier here. ORAS does have an amazing amount of Pokemon to catch, including the post-game experience where you can catch all of the legendaries. This definitely adds more to the games if you were to look at them as a standalone title. All in all, the games themselves are good. There are a lot of new features to get stuck into, but the games just felt a bit slow. Now, this could have something to do with the too much water meme, but I'm not so sure. There are a lot of cutscenes and halting in your progress, which is something that the 3DS games definitely suffered with. Aside from that, these games were too indistinguishable from the original to be a really solid remake for me. To be classed as a good remake, they have to have a healthy dose of nostalgia, and these just didn't. ORAS lands a 6 out of 10 for art style, a 6 out of 10 for nostalgia, a 10 out of 10 for new features, and a 6 out of 10 for fun factor. 28 out of 40 overall. Pokemon Let's Go released late 2018, about a year after the Nintendo Switch launched. Now, I might contradict myself a bit here because I've just said that changing too much from the originals was a negative for ORAS, but that is literally the entire point of Pokemon Let's Go. These games are essentially a promotion for the Nintendo Switch, and we're bringing some of the Pokemon Go mechanics to the console. It's actually hard to judge them as a remake because it's almost like that wasn't really their purpose, but they do completely focus on Gen 1, so we're judging them anyway. The art style is cool. It feels more like an RPG game. The battle scenes are interesting and the towns are really in depth. There's not really anything else to say about the design, the capabilities of the Switch made them look really good. The storyline is basically the same as the originals, which makes this game great for anyone diving back in after all those years. But if you're like me and played through Fire Red and Leaf Green 326,856 times, and counting, you might be a little bit bored of the same story. This game, unlike ORAS, should have changed from the original a little bit, in my opinion. The main differences come in the gameplay mechanics. With the popularity of Pokemon Go, they wanted to test out how it would translate to the console. Well, it actually translated pretty well. With the overworld encounters being a nice touch, you never have to run into those pesky Zubats again. And the actual catching mechanic is pretty solid. Using your Joy-Con to throw the Pokeball is pretty satisfying. However, if you're playing handheld, pressing A to throw the ball and directing the console is pretty tedious. This game gave us the ability to ride on our Pokemon, which is actually really cool. What kid didn't want to ride on Arcanine's back, or fly on their Charizard? My favourite is definitely Snorlax though. What is even happening here? They also included a co-op aspect to the game, which is great. I'll always believe that social gaming is definitely the best form of gaming. In terms of Pokemon you can catch, the world is really your cloister. Is that one funny? No? The integration of Pokemon Go into the game meant that you could transfer any Pokemon you had on there to your actual game. That's really good for team diversity. Also, this game was actually a dream for shiny hunters, with its chain mechanic and the fact that the overworld spawns would actually appear shiny. Let's Go offered a completely different experience to the stereotypical Pokemon game, but stayed true to the storyline. It did it in a fun way that definitely added a different aspect to it, but I wouldn't want it to be like that in every Pokemon game. It's nice to play as a one-off game, but definitely is too different from the mainline games for me. For a promotional game that was meant to be extremely gimmicky, it did a good job. I wouldn't class it as a brilliant remake though. For Let's Go, we're giving it an 8 out of 10 for art style, a 5 out of 10 for nostalgia, a 5 out of 10 for new features, and a 7 out of 10 for fun factor. 25 out of 40 overall. These were the remakes that everyone was waiting for. Diamond and Pearl were beloved by the community and desperately needed to be brought into the modern era. The art style in these games has divided a lot of opinion. The chibi style is vastly different from recent titles, and actually makes the game feel much closer to the original. I personally like it. It makes the game feel a touch more nostalgic, but definitely still modernised with the battle scenes and general building design. In my opinion, with the release of Legends of Arceus, this game had to be as close to the original as possible. I say that because Legends offers a completely different take on Pokemon. If this remake had been vastly different from Diamond and Pearl, then the Pokemon community would have no new games to play that felt anything like the original games. So for me, it was a good move to make them look more similar. Alongside the art style feeling close to the originals, the storyline is too. The towns are the same, the gym leaders use the same Pokemon, it quite literally is a like for like of the original Sinnoh. This will definitely butter people up the wrong way, as it could be seen as lazy. There really isn't much in the games that you weren't expecting already. Apart from the underground tunnels having a nice revamp, with some small biomes added too. Each different section could be a potential different biome. It could be a biome that contains fire-type Pokemon, poison-type Pokemon, cave Pokemon, the list goes on. This is the only part of the game where you can see overworld Pokemon, but I think it's a really nice touch. It gives you a bunch more to do whilst you're in between gyms, and gives you a chance at some rare spawns early on. Then, as you progress through the gyms, you will get more and more rare spawns pop up. The reappearance of the XP share that is impossible to turn off also makes the game far too easy. Not even mentioning the fact that they give you a Mew and Jirachi for absolutely nothing. At least in ORAS you could turn the XP share off. It just makes your Pokemon extremely high leveled very early on. TMs are also single use again, which isn't great. And HMs are now just TMs. Really odd. Poison also doesn't affect your Pokemon outside of battle anymore, which will slightly inconvenience Pika Spray's soft lockpicking, but I imagine it'll be fine. Not having this convenience is actually a little sad, as that was always a big part of the Pokemon games. That being said though, even as early as Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, your Pokemon would survive on 1 HP anyway, so I guess it's not too bad. Whilst the fact that the games were true to the originals is definitely good for me, I do think it will give off the wrong impression to the community, due to the sheer simplicity of the remake. I don't personally mind, as all I wanted to play was a better looking version of Diamond and Pearl on a current console, but I can understand why it'll annoy a lot of people. I don't think these remakes are terrible by any stretch, but they are a little bit bare bones. I'm not saying go overboard like ORAS, but a few more new things on top of the Grand Underground would have been great. A little bit disappointing, but still a good nostalgia trip. For Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, we're giving it a 6 out of 10 for art style, an 8 out of 10 for nostalgia, a 3 out of 10 for new features, and finally a 7 out of 10 for fun factor. An overall of 24 out of 40. Right, so that wraps up the overview of each remake. If you have any objections, which I'm sure many of you do, please leave them in the comments. I love reading opinions on Pokemon, as it usually is a very unique series to every single player. Also, before we quickly rank them, if you did enjoy the video, please do leave a like. And if you're wanting more content like this on a variety of games, hit that subscribe button too. We're halfway to 1,000 subs and would really appreciate your help to get there. Anyway, let's rank these games. Coming in at number 5 is Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl with a 24 out of 40. I want to stress that none of these games are bad. This is a mixture of personal preference and objective improvements. Unfortunately, there weren't many improvements here, so I had to throw my bias and admiration for the original games out of the window. Number 4, Pokemon Let's Go with a 25 out of 40. Let's Go offered us a new take on the original Pokemon games, without going too far away from what we all loved about them. It's number 4 because it's just a gimmick game, not really a proper remake. Still a ton of fun though. Number 3, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, 28 out of 40. Whilst I personally didn't like ORAS that much, I can definitely see the value in it. There are a ton of new features and stuff to explore. It didn't have a very nostalgic feel, but put a new spin on the Gen 3 games we loved. Definitely not the best remake, but also definitely not the worst. Number 2, Fire Red and Leaf Green, 32 out of 40. Fire Red and Leaf Green kind of feel similar to the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remakes, but had absolutely nowhere near the same technology to enhance them, which is a damning indictment of the new games. They captured exactly what made everyone fall in love with the series and made it much more playable. Great games. And number 1, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, 35 out of 40. Was this really a surprise? You don't need me to tell you how great these games were. If you haven't played them, please do. They might actually just be the best Pokemon games of all time, let alone just remakes. So that wraps it up. We really hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a comment telling us your top 5 remakes, or even just your tier list of Pokemon games in general. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.